All right, all right, all right. Well, once again, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls all over the world, all over Midgard, Hamlin, welcome back to another Random Heathen Ramblings podcast. Now brought to you on more platforms that I can think of. I am here broadcasting live as a YouTube premiere, a premiere on all your major podcast listening platforms as well, including Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and now also included on iHeartRadio. So if this is your first time finding the podcast or listening and you are looking for yet another way to enjoy your podcast experience, you got iHeartRadio now. Probably something else really cool coming up soon, hopefully, for you Spotifyers out there, because I think most of my listening audience, at least, uses Spotify. Got some pretty cool things coming down the pipeline that, because Anchor is now in partners with Spotify, and they have opened up a new option to a select audience. It's going to become eventually probably by the time this podcast comes out, even more of a broader audience. But for right now, they're going to be starting probably sometime middle to the end of this month, hopefully. Video podcast for Spotify. So that's pretty cool. I'm looking forward to that. Probably looking to, restructure things a little bit here with what I do on the podcast a bit, just to take advantage of things like that to my fullest. So, hail and welcome back. My name is Jesse. I am your host. As always, no guests today, so you're going to be stuck with me for about the next however long. Might not be an exceptionally long podcast today, but my timing was off a little bit this week. I thought I had a guest. Well, I actually did have a guest scheduled for today's podcast, but due to some either scheduling conflicts and other, events that took place, we're gonna have to postpone that guest's appearance until next week. But anyways, let's get past the Midgard Musings intro. We heard from Donheim and Sigurd for that Runetal, introduction. So now let's get through into the Midgard Musings intro. Here we go. All right. I need to do something here real quick before we get started, because otherwise I will be inundated with unnecessary noises and distractions. So let me just do something here. That might work. All right. That will hopefully work. All right, so here we go. We're going to get into today's podcast. Again, hail and welcome. My name is Jesse, and I'm the host here. Hope you are all doing well, staying safe, and enjoying life. So, what are we going to be talking about today? Who knows? Because it's just me. So I got to kind of let you know what's going on in the world of my heathenry, at least, and see where the one-sided conversation goes. But hail and welcome to all of you, especially everyone who's taking the time out of your morning to tune into the YouTube premiere. I am also a bit tired, and my whole schedule is off, my work schedule. So, today, of course, by the time this comes out, today is Thursday, but at the time of this recording, it's Monday. And so I had to work a 12-hour shift today, and I have to work another 12-hour shift tonight, technically this morning, Tuesday morning. So Monday from midnight to noon, I was working, and then again, I'll be doing it today. So I've never been, this is one of those things where it's like if you've never worked third shift, or if you've ever had to abruptly change your shift, sleep shift, or your sleep schedule, it can be a very alarming sort of thing for your body. And that's where I'm kind of at right now. I tried to stay up as late as I could Sunday, go to sleep early Sunday afternoon in anticipation of having to stay up. That worked out kind of okay, but then today has just been like, I got off of work at about 12:30 this afternoon, or 12:30 in the afternoon, and tried to lay down, and I think I maybe got a few hours of sleep in, and then I'm like laying there, and it's just, I still don't feel like that kind of cloudiness, that haziness in your head, So I got one more day of that, and then it's back to my normal routine. But, that's what happens when you do what I do, and you have to do what I do, and people don't do what they are supposed to do, and you have to, hold the hands of grown adults. But anyways, that's what's going on this week. Got a really fun thing coming up here with members of my tribe, just my Gothi and law speaker Dingo. You guys know Dingo. He's been on the podcast several times and has been on the YouTube channel, of course, a number of times as well. But and I've talked about this in a couple of previous episodes, or at least alluded to this thing that we're doing. We're going to be camping Saturday night, and it's somewhat of a spiritual retreat. I'll put it that way. Yes, we are going to be camping, and yes, we are going to be discovering things about ourselves that need to be discovered spiritually while we're camping. Of course, we're going to be on family land, or as I always refer to this in the heathen sense as the Odal lands, the ancestral lands. This is property that is my Gothi's parents, and has been their property his whole life. This is where he grew up. So our Vey, our sacred grove circle, over the years, I believe it's been called a number of things: the circle, the grove, calling it the Vey. I think it's been referred to also as the Woodland Cathedral, which is fitting, because if you've ever been inside of a cathedral or a church and you hear like the acoustics when you're within that, how the sound hits off of the columns and the walls and everything like that. It's when you go out to this space where we go, it's basically on the side of a limestone shelf. There's very shallow dirt. You try digging any depths and you won't get very far because it's all rock. It's all limestone. So the rock, offers a very acoustic effect. It carries the sound around you very, very nicely. And so it does. It kind of resembles, of course, you're outdoors, you're in nature, but it kind of resembles that, echoing experience that you would get inside of a cathedral. So I don't know if that's why it's called that. Again, it was called that before I was around and going out there. Because again, like I said, this goes back to parts of my Gothi's lives that I was never around, his childhood and youth and young adult years. So how it got that name, I'm not 100% sure, but that's my speculation. So we're going to be out there in just a couple of days' time from today's episode. It will be out there on Saturday. And the cool thing about spending time out here, anytime we go out there for whatever reason, we hold ritual out there. There's been, just some schedule events take place kind of like this is going to be. You know, this is not like a scheduled event. This was something that it was scheduled to the extent that we planned for it, right? But it actually had been moved up a month because we were supposed to be out there last month and wasn't able to work out, which actually it worked out pretty well that it didn't. So, but every time we go out there, you know, we always learn something new, and I think, you know, take away a very valuable lesson or valuable lessons. You know, so like, for example, this past week, before the event that's coming up, before the camping thing that we're doing, we had to go out there, of course, and prepare the land and cut wood and clean up and just make it, you know, presentable and accessible and all that kind of stuff from the summer where we hadn't been out there for months. And so we had the intentions of using a chainsaw to cut up any deadfall limbs, right, for our firewood, cover it up, and fortunately we've had a nice week and a half long of dry weather for the wood that we cut to kind of, you know, dry out. We had covered it with tarps. But anyways, the intention of us using a chainsaw to cut out all this, or cut up, I should say, all of this deadfall didn't work out because the chainsaw wouldn't start, you know, and we made sure that it was, you know, fresh fuel, fresh gas and oil mixture, fresh bar and chain oil. The only thing that we couldn't determine is if maybe, you know, another mechanical piece of the machine was failing, a spark plug or something, starter, I don't know. So we couldn't determine that, and at that point it was like, you know, there's no way that we're gonna effectively figure this out. So what did we have to do? We had to go back to the old methods of cutting up wood, clearing up land with just our bare hands, you know, the blood and sweat of you know, of our own bodies. So we were, you know, using axes and saws and stuff to chop up into manageable pieces deadfall, which was mostly cedar, bit of maple and some oak. And I'll tell you, every time that we, like I said, we go out there, we learn a lesson, and that was a pretty valuable lesson to me, because our tribe's name is Heathen folk, and it's a nod to Thor, because Heathen is one of Thor's names that he's known by, and it's basically a thundering storm, or the thunder, right? So Heathen folk for us are, you know, we are people of, or folk of the thunder, the thunderous folk, the people of the thundering storm. And the working class, you know, the middle class, the everyman, the type of people who in ancient times were very close to Thor, held Thor in a very high regard, because he was the one that was closest to them. He's the protector of Midgard, and he's our protector from the Jotun and various things. So we look to Thor for a lot, inspiration, strength, courage, the ability to take action and do things right when we need to. And again, it's always kind of neat to me when we're out there. Anything that would have made our lives easier, right? That chainsaw, we would have made short order of all of the work that needed to be done, and would have had the chance to, you know, just kick back and relax for most of the day, you know, around there, had we had an item like a chainsaw or whatever to help us. But that wasn't the case. We had to work. We had to put in the work, and we had to put in hard work to get our space ready. And that's, to me, that's just, you know, that's appropriate. That's the right way for it to be done. And it made the whole experience so much more meaningful, right? And it was like there was a taunting almost going on as well too. I remember it, because when we were out there, it was a beautiful day. You know, sun is shining. It's not that very hot. You know, a little bit of a breeze. You know, we're starting to feel the autumn crisp in the air, not like very cold, but just, you know, not as hot and humid. And in the distance, one of the neighbors, they were out cutting wood themselves, and they were out there with a chainsaw, and it was like, man, you know, you just kept hearing that wah, 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 you know. And we were just like wanting to scream out, you feel like doing just a little bit extra, maybe 30 minutes worth of work, you know, you want to come over here, we'll pay you, you know. But we didn't, and we didn't have to. And I feel like it, you know, it was, like I said, just a very wholesome experience to get out there, and at the end of it all, just feel exhausted, but in a good way. Like, man, I'm tired. You know, I'm sore today. At the end of it all, I'm ready to sleep. I'm ready to rest. And it wouldn't have, I don't think we would have captured that same, or those same kinds of feelings had we had the ease of something like a chainsaw. So we've got the wood cut. It's been covered, you know, so for whatever little, you know, we had a couple of rainstorms come through the other day, and there's a little bit of rain in the forecast. Fortunately, from what we can tell, you know, the day of our thing is going to be no rain, you know, in the forecast. It's going to be a little bit warm for this time of year, which I think is pretty much everywhere. You know, the average temperatures around the world are higher than average these days. But we're going to be out there, and we got everything done that we needed to get done in order to make our stay enjoyable. We'll have a campfire. You know, it's probably not going to be too terribly cold overnight. I think the lows are supposed to get down to the low 60s, which is perfect. Matter of fact, it could be even a few degrees cooler and be still perfect for sleeping in. Right. So there's a lot to be looking forward to. This is kind of one of those. This is like one of those things where, again, I can't go into a lot of detail about the specifics of it all, but this is something that we've needed. I can confidently say, you know, this is something that we've needed. Our tribe has needed for some time, and the timing of it is good. We're just a couple of weeks away from the Winter Nights festivities, of the Winter Night celebration that we tend to have. We are in a very what's the word I'm looking for? This time of year is very, you know, the sensitivities of the realms around us, you know, that people talk about the veil between the realms being thin. And this is, you know, we're approaching for you Celtic pagans and others that observe the Samhain season, or the Samhain celebrations, you know, like we're, again, just right around the corner for that. I have myself have been feeling so much emotionally, and just feeling of just that spiritual taxation, you know what I mean? Like it's rough being myself right now, and being sensitive to certain things and being involved with certain things. I'm you know, in the midst of going through something within my hearth, within my home, within my, you know, my wife and I, the two of us are right now, as we speak, as a matter of fact, you know, in the very midst of going through a very, very difficult and challenging and hurtful period of time, you know. And we are processing this whole thing in each our own way, you know. And another dear friend of mine, he's going through, another brother of mine, you know, he's going through not the same exact thing that we're going through, but he too is going through a very taxing and very difficult and very challenging time within his hearth and family. And, you know, he's a non-blood related brother to mine, a brother of mine, and brother to me. So, you know, his family's hurt as my family's hurt, and vice versa. You know, we share in each other's celebrations. We share in each other's victories, and we also, share in each other's griefs and sorrows, and the love that we have for each other goes beyond anything that I think can be physically represented or described even. The kind of love that we speak of when we talk about family, kinship, that sort of thing, the type of love that allows you to reach deep down and do whatever it takes for your kin, do whatever it takes to help them, which includes sacrifice, which includes giving up of things, and giving them over to the sacred, because there's no way that you can possibly have use of those things. And I know I may sound a bit cryptic, and I just, at this point in time, I'm not ready to go into a lot of specific detail. A lot of the specific details have yet to be fully manifested. But I'm sure that over time, maybe in the next podcast or something, we'll have a little bit more details to go into, because I think it's this type of thing that I'm going through, that my wife and I are going through, and that my brother and I are going through, and his family are going through, and everything like that. These are the kinds of things that really, I think, it makes or breaks us, in terms of the whole family unit, the whole, you're not blood related to me, but you are every bit of a kinsman or a kinswoman to me, and we are kins people. We are folk together. And I think that in nowadays, in the modern day heathen construct, a lot of that is becoming more apparent as being needful, and you have to have that in order for heathenry to work. But I still think that we're not fully there yet, and it still is something that does not get talked about a lot, and it doesn't get cultivated a lot with newer heathens. I know a lot of folks coming into heathenry are all about the gods, how they interact with the gods and stuff like that. And this stuff that I'm talking about right here, you need to have family in place, you need to have clan, you need to have hearth, you need to have tribe in place in order for any of this to work. And the gods won't help you through stuff like this. Your family does, your kin does, your tribe does. These are the people, these are the ways of heathenry that make it what it is, and all of the extra stuff comes along with it, and makes it a very important aspect of our religious beliefs and our spirituality. But once again, it really lies at the hearth. Heathens lie. What is it? I was talking to Eric Shervin earlier this week, and we were some other people in the conversation was pointing to tribe, and that heathenry is where the hearth is, and I believe that. I don't just say it because I think it sounds cool and whatever, but no, it is. Heathenry is where the hearth is. So for all you hashtaggers out there, hashtag heathenry is where the hearth is. And make that a thing. Learn that. Get to establish and maintain your hearth, your tribe. The people that have always, that they've got your back when you need them the most, and you've got theirs when they need you the most. Is that, again, reciprocation thing, right? But so yeah, that's a lot of what's going on right now. And when I talk about this whole time of year, with winter nights coming up, and you're going to hear probably a lot of talk in the coming weeks, not just here on this podcast or other pagan and heathen podcasts, about the wild hunt, and that this is the time of year when it's known or said to exist. I was talking to another friend of mine, a very near friend of mine, who's been on the channel before. I don't think he's technically been a guest on the podcast. He might have been a podcast episode, but J.M. Olofsson, Fjellvitir Workshop. Fjellvetir shamanism and stuff. Very, very knowledgeable gentleman. And we were talking again, because there's a lot of folks that I consider acquaintances and consider friends. And then there's other people that I consider family and near and dear, like kin to me. And I talk to people in different levels of candidness, knowing because I can trust them that it will stay between us. But I was talking to JM a little bit about what I was alluding to earlier and what we'll probably go into further details on in a later podcast episode, or episodes even. But when we were talking, he was talking about the wild hunt, and it got into a discussion of, wanting to be taken away by the hosts of the Odin's riders, the Odin's host that rides through. And because it was said, in the folklore that, if you were caught out during the wild hunt, that you would be taken up and become part of the hunt, because it was not something that you wanted to be caught out in, according to the folklore, right? You would lock up your windows, right? Hide your kids, hide your wife, lock the doors, right? That sort of thing. But JM was, and I were talking. He was, he says, I've, been out there and experienced what it's like to feel the raging host ride through, and wanting to be caught up in it. And I was like, man, I said, I've experienced that myself as well, in the sense of being literally in the path that the host rides through, not near proximity, not thinking, oh, wow, that felt like it. Like, no, I knew there was something in the air. And then when they came through, it was destruction. And it scared the living piss out of me. I'm going to be honest, because it was like, I do not want to be out there on that. It was terrible, and I didn't get the same, desire to want to be a part of that as JM did. And that's neither here nor there. It's just, one person's experience versus another's. But man, I'll tell you what, that was a terrible, and frightening and alarming experience to be in the path of the ride. Okay. But boy, oh boy, yeah. So with that coming around this time of year and the whole thinning of the veil, Samhain, winter nights, the connection between the realms where the living, the physical living and the physical dead, that the separation between the realms, the barrier that separates the realms is not quite so clearly defined, and it's much easier to connect. And I'm kind of like asking everybody out here that's watching right now, let me know right down in the comments, but are you guys feeling the same thing? Are you feeling the same level of like hyper awareness, hyper sensitivity to things that are unseen? I recently, kind of in tandem with the whole experience that I was talking about earlier with my wife and I, my brother and his family, and just everything, conducted a ritual myself that was different than any ritual I'd ever attempted before. And I was, tapping into the Sather trance states and things like that. And I'd never done that before, and I'd prepared as well as I could, and I was doing as best as I could, and I didn't quite get there. I didn't quite get to where I was trying to go. I got, like I was describing it to some people, I said I got to, like, I didn't reach where I was trying to get, but I got to the shoreline. I was within sight and within audible distance of my destination. I just couldn't get past the shoreline, but I was close enough to ring the bell loud enough, raise enough of a presence to be noticed and to be seen, I felt. So, one of the cool things that I love about the network of people who I've, become friends with, is their perspectives on things, and how I think of something when I perceive something, and I get a perception of it, and then I talk to other people that have a different perspective or have a similar view but have an alternative angle that they look at it, right? And it helps me so much. And this is one of the things that I was talking to one of the folks about, and I was saying, I I did the best I could. I don't, I hope I was heard. I hope this whole thing happened. That the intention of why I did this, that the intentions were met. You never know. I say, you'll never know, but there are times, and this was one of them, where I was just like, well, I did what I did. We'll see what happens, kind of thing. I didn't have a profound thing happen right at that moment as I was coming back from where I went to where I needed to be. I need to come back to my space, to the profane. I was journeying towards places outside of this physical realm, right? But anyway, one of the things that was told to me was, that the intention, the action, what I was trying to do. I said, I hope I was heard, I hope I was seen, hope I was noticed. And the response I got was that, I'm sure it was, and even if just at the shoreline you were seen, even if from a distance, right? Your efforts and willingness to connect were taken note of, because each time introductions become shorter and shorter. And this is the part that really got interesting for me to think about and ponder on, right? Introductions become shorter and shorter because becoming more familiar and known. So sometimes it's like visiting a maze and like being given 60 seconds to reach a certain point. We don't make it far, but we remember the turns and the dead ends that we encountered the way there. So the next time we get maybe another 60 seconds or another 2 minutes further. And then by those small, short, individual increments of experiences, it builds into a singular, greater experience that you'll finally take. I don't know. It's like, okay, I don't feel so bad. And I don't feel so bad that it's like, oh, I'm intending to, reach from point A to point B. And I didn't get to point B. I got somewhere in between point A and B. But I tell you, I know the way to get to that point now. And then maybe the next time when I get there, now we go a little bit further. And he's, looking at things on a larger scale contained within the smaller. So it's like from like weeks within years and years within century and centuries within millennia. It's all, I don't know, like it made sense to me thinking about it, and I'm not maybe verbalizing it the greatest right now because I'm trying to think about it again, but it's like that makes a whole lot of sense to me. It's just because I didn't reach the destination doesn't mean I did anything particularly wrong. It's just that that wasn't the time for it. And now you know how to get to that point. You can get further the next time. So I don't know, maybe that's something, for all of us to consider here now, especially during this time of year with the quote unquote thinning of the veil, the connection between realms being easier to establish and maintain. You've got an advantage, if you so choose to take it, to make those frequent trips or make those attempts to connect and perform those sorts of rituals. I don't, it's not for everybody, and I don't recommend getting into things that you're not at least somewhat of an understanding and prepared to encounter and prepared to do. You don't want to go into anything like this carelessly or all, willy-nilly sort of thing. But yeah, that's kind of where I'm at with it all. So you know, next week when my the guest that was supposed to be here this week is Richard McCune, who's been on the podcast before. We talked about Enochian beliefs, magic, and that sort of thing. And he's going to come back next week again. He was supposed to be here this week talking about some things, and there was a conflict or two that he'll be joining us next week to talk about some things. I want to go into more detail and more depth about, you know, kind of some of the things that we talked about during our last podcast episode. So I'm gonna annotate down below for the VTubers that are watching right now. The YouTubers, all my YouTube folks, members and stuff that are watching right now. Check the description down below for the podcast episode where we talked about that, and then for all you podcast listeners, in the show notes will be the link to that episode where him and I talked. It was a fun podcast, but we were talking about this, and he said, "Man, I really want to I want to go in there with the gloves off, you know, really just kind of get into it all, and don't, you know, hem and haw or don't pussyfoot around talking about certain things, and just really get into it." And I'm like, "Hey, I don't, you know, that's fine. I mean, I have no problem with that. I have no problem getting into the meat and potatoes and getting, you know, kind of your feet dirty, or your hands wet, or I don't know, you know, whatever the terminology is, you know, just get in there and then, you know, get your hands in the mud and then talk about these things, whatever those things are. I don't know yet, but we'll see. But you can kind of get a sense about what we were talking about. Because, man, that was the last time we were on. I had him on a podcast was at the beginning of season 2, and we are quickly approaching the end of season 2 here. You know, in just another, you know, few short months. So that kind of is where things are. Like I said before, it's probably not going to be a very long podcast episode. I did want to just let everyone know that you know, listens to these things, that's maybe wondering, like, where are all your YouTube videos? Because I haven't done a YouTube video, a proper YouTube video in a while. I'm trying to maintain a straight cadence of these podcasts, because it's, you know, it's fun to have people on here and talk about things. So now that I've been doing this regular cadence now for the biggest part of a month or two, I'm ready to get back into doing something similar, planning and, you know, recording content and having them premiere every week at the same time. So stay tuned for more to come with that. I have some really interesting videos that I want to shoot, and have had some things on my mind that are just tucked in the memory banks, or, you know, logged away in some sort of fashion on a digital piece of paper or what have you. I'm sure after this upcoming spiritual exodus, as it were, the spiritual camping trip that I'm about to be going on here in a couple of days, I'm sure that there's going to be a lot more coming from myself out here on the channel and out here on the podcast platform. So I've actually got a new publication of the Poetic Edda that I want to, you know, kind of read over, glance over. It's an academic, well, it's a study edition, you know, so there's a lot of study points in the Poetic Edda, and I was given this as a gift, with a request of reviewing it and talking about it. So I don't know if that'll fit in all into one video or even one podcast, but it'll be out here on the airwaves or the video waves, or you'll be able to experience it one form or fashion. But that'll be coming out soon. Want to back up the deity discussion series. Been getting a lot of requests on the channel to keep them up and stuff. And I even have some ones that I want to revisit, particularly the Loki one, because the Loki video gets a lot of hits, I guess for obvious reasons, but it's probably the highest viewed deity discussion video that I have, and it's several years old now, and I look back on, I'm like, I want to revisit this one. So there'll be more to come with that and more to come on the channel very soon. So I think that'll just about wrap it up for today. It's going to be somewhat of a shorter episode, but when it's just me sitting here, um, talking with all of yous, and then sharing my thoughts on things, I don't want to beat the horse any deader than it needs to be beaten till, if that makes any sense. But so, if you want your voice to be heard and you want to have, if you want to share your thoughts on something, I would invite you all to please call the Midgard Musings hotline. The phone lines are always open. Just leave a voicemail. And that number is 615-671-9832. And yeah, just, let me know what you thought about this podcast episode or any of the others that you were listening to, or ask a question about something that you want to hear talked about. We'll feature it. We'll feature it on the podcast. Okay. And the other thing is if you're looking to support the podcast in any way, you can do so in a number of ways monetarily. Okay. Becoming a patron on Patreon is an option. You can, of course, become a channel member on YouTube, and you don't have to miss the video premiere or worry about missing the video premiere, at least not right now. The videos after the premiere, this video will always go into the members only vault. So if you want to see that, video format at your own free time or on your own free time, you can consider becoming a channel member. If you want to support the channel and sport some really cool merchandise, you can go to the Midgard Musings Teespring store, or Spring store it's called now. That's going to be linked in the link tree in the description and show notes of the podcast / video. So just check that out. You can donate through PayPal. You can, buy rune sets. There's a number of ways that if you want to. There's also a way for you to support the podcast through Anchor, monetarily. So there's going to be more ways to help the podcast be supported. More stuff's going to be coming out over time, so keep your eyes and ears peeled for that. But as of right now, you're listening and you're viewing these videos and these podcasts are the way to help get the word out and get more people involved with it all. So keep listening, keep tuning in, keep watching, keep commenting, keep upvoting, keep liking, keep sharing. That's all I can ask. If you like what I do and you enjoy these, expand the community and help get people aware of them as well, and invite people out. When these premieres come out every Thursday morning, I know it's literally the start of a lot of people's work day, or in the middle of the morning for a lot of people's work time. So it may be challenging for you to make the premiere, but if you can, if you at least know some others that can, share it around and be a part of it. It'll be fun. So until we talk again, the next time that we talk is going to be with Richard McCune, and it'll be after the events of my camping trip with the brothers of my tribe. So it will be a very thorough discussion. I can next week's podcast episode, this one being a little bit short, next week's one is going to make up for that and then some, I think. Looking forward to it. So for all of you out here listening and watching all over the world, thank you so much for your support today. Thank you so much for your support ongoing. Don't forget to check the description and check the show notes for all the ways that you can support the podcast and support the channel. Follow me on all my social media, which is Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. Of course, subscribe to the YouTube channel if you haven't yet already. And until we talk again, thank you all so much. Hail, stay safe. See you next time.